Did you read the recent Sunday Times profile of Hannah Needleman, the Ballerina Farm?
Oh, my sister was just telling
Does
me
it ring a
about her and
bell?
showing me.
Right. It's had a massive impact on social media. So this is a woman who is a former ballerina who she's stunningly beautiful. She's also a beauty queen. She's been a Mrs. America, I think, and she's also Mormon. And her husband is a Mormon billionaire because he's heir to some like airline fortune or something like that. And she gave up ballet in order to go and live in, I think they live in Utah, to go and live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And she's had 8 children so far, tight age gaps. And she is like, she's like the Uber trad wife. And she's all over, and she has loads of social media stuff about her kids and the farm and the cooking and things like that. And this profile of her recently very strongly represented her as being basically being controlled or being coerced into this life by her husband and represented. And like, I have no knowledge of whether or not that's true because I've never met these people and probably no one really knows apart from them, right? um, but the impression given in the piece, which is written by a female journalist, and the way that this has been received publicly mostly, is basically this poor woman. She gave up her dream of being a ballerina to go and do drudge work. One of the things that's been remarked upon a lot is that they don't have a nanny. So she has 8 children and she's doing lots of work on the
That is a lot.
property. Yeah, and they don't have a nanny, and they could obviously afford a nanny because
Yeah.
her husband's super rich. The thing that jumped out to me about a lot of the responses to the Ballerina Farm piece, I'm again saying I don't know what's going on in their marital home, right? None of us do really. Um, was so much of the response felt to me like concern trolling. It felt to me like, I'm just worried you're being abused, right? To
Yeah.
this woman who, I mean, come on, like she's gorgeous and she's married to a billionaire. I mean, it's not like she's clearly extraordinarily high status. Her
Yeah.
life, as represented on social media, is so glamorous. I felt very strongly like there was a tearing women down thing going on there where like we have to find some way of puncturing what is otherwise an impossibly envious, envy provoking person, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
surreptitious.
Yeah. I mean, she's like basically won the lottery. Attractive,
Right.
high status partner, clearly has reproductive success. And so that's interesting that it might be kind of like, oh, I'm just so worried about her because it takes away her status, right? If she didn't actively choose it, it's actually sad rather than something we should all be envying. We do, in some of my studies, we've found that so people generally show a pro-female bias where they tend to see women as victims and they're more sympathetic to their suffering. And in some of our studies, we're finding that women show this bias to a stronger degree than women, or excuse me, than men. And so I think that it could function kind of in multiple ways. It might be a way of signaling to other women, like, oh, I'm a good friend, choose me because I'm on team woman. However, it might also be one way, this is kind of a competitive strategy as well. By I'm just so concerned about you that you get to look nice to other women. We're looking out for her while you're also kind of undermining her status.
Yeah. I mean, I think also the other thing that's going with Ballerina Farm phenomenon is that she has excelled in a particular area of female status, which is old fashioned, I suppose. Like, I find it kind of peculiar that it's considered obviously preferable by a lot of these critics to be a ballerina than to be a mother of 8. Whereas being a ballerina, I mean, maybe I'm just an oaf who doesn't like ballet, but it doesn't really strike me as being obviously, it's very hard work. It ruins your body. You're at risk of sexual exploitation. There's a lot of Harvey Weinsteins, I think, in this world. You normally will age out of it when you're in your 20s or 30s. It's super it's like super focused on body image, lots of anorexia, etc. Like to me, it seems like actually a pretty bad gig, right? Whereas being a mother of eight, obviously also very difficult in some of the same ways. But to basically strongly assert that pursuing your professional dreams, be they ballet or whatever, is definitely better than pursuing having a large family. I guess also, and to do it in a slightly concerned trolley way, I guess is also another way of playing these status games among women, basically saying that route that I haven't chosen is bad. The route that I've chosen is definitely the better route.
Yeah, it's undermining of her agency. Like she has the relevant information. She could compare both lives. And maybe you're right. Like maybe it has to do with like as you age, it's not really that viable of a career. Um, and I wonder if they dislike it because it appears to be appealing to what men would want from women, you know? So like there are some data looking at like guys girls versus girls, and women tend to dislike other women that appear to be on team men. And so I wonder if by, leading into this trad life, it's kind of signaling my loyalty is with other men. And so maybe that's upsetting to other women. And I do think it's interesting that like there's a lot of pressure for women to kind of pursue these careers where they get a lot of resources, but might not be able to reproduce. And it's like, is that necessarily better for that woman? Is that actually in her interest? And I'm starting to think that possibly some of the selective factors happening within women is kind of supporting women's access to resources, because if she has access to resources, she might share with you, especially if she is team women. So if our female ancestors were really vulnerable, so I've been looking into like the rates of return in hunting versus gathering, and hunting tends to provide more calories. With gathering, women, they don't tend to secure as many calories, and sometimes it's not even enough to support themselves, let alone all of their kids. And so you almost need these extra resources. And of course, one form is a male partner. But perhaps if you could guilt other women by signaling like, hey, I need a lot right now, or, once you get your share of resources, are you going to share with me? It might be a way to kind of like spread the wealth among women. So maybe we are kind of pushing women into these high resource situations because it benefits women as a whole, even if it's at the cost of that one woman.
That's really interesting. So one of the ways that you might signal that you're a guy's gal, right, is either by living up to the model of what men really like, which might include being a trad wife, might mean being really beautiful, might mean being anti-feminist. I mean, these are all the sorts of things that might signal that you might not actually be as generous with your female peers as we might like.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the other findings where women tend to dislike, they dislike when women use their appearance to get resources or opportunities. They tend to really dislike sexually promiscuous women, which is appealing to men's interests. They tend to dislike when women aren't kind. And so maybe what that's signaling is like, I'm not going to share with you other women. And we know that there are data that they don't like guys, girls. So I think if we put all of those together, they're kind of saying like you're appealing to men's interests and you're not considering other women, which actually would be really threatening, because you could imagine if you were in a group and your kids are about to starve and there's this woman married to the best hunter and her kids are doing fine and she doesn't want to share meat with you. Like that difference compared to a woman who is like really generous and sympathetic, that might be the difference between your children dying or not, so I could understand for our female ancestors why you would care if another woman is like willing to share her wealth or has concern for other women, because if she doesn't care about you, that could be, your family at risk.